Hey y'all, I am in Washington, D.C. on the Tidal Basin, and I'm about to visit the memorial to President Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Our four-term president, well, in my opinion, is one of the best. Of course, he was the New Deal president as well as our World War II leader. Let's go check this out.
The memorial was dedicated in 1997 to the 32nd president, who had an unprecedented 4 terms. One aspect of Roosevelt the memorial emphasizes is his disability. This statue shows him uncovered in a wheelchair. Roosevelt contracted polio in 1921, uncurable at the time, and this was a severely difficult challenge for him. And inside the memorial gift shop is actually one of his wheelchairs. During his presidency, this was covered up as much as possible. He made sure he was never seen with his leg braces or wheelchair. The memorial is broken up into 4 rooms or areas for his 4 terms. He was inaugurated in 1933, the worst point of the Great Depression, which had began over 3 years earlier. So, in his first 100 days, he called in a special session of Congress, which passed the most legislation in history, like financial recovery and reform programs like the Emergency Banking Relief Act and Glass-Steagall. He also passed relief for the unemployed, which was at 25% in 1933, like the Federal Emergency Relief Administration, the PWA, the Civilian Conservation Corps, the TVA, the CWA, FHA, and a lot more.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Later he got the WPA, the Wagner Act, and Social Security Act passed, and the US economy started to improve and get out of the Depression because of this proactive administration. The New Deal's legacies in many ways still live on, and have helped hundreds of millions of Americans since then. Roosevelt was known for his fireside chats. He used radios, which were pretty common technology at that point, to speak directly to the American people. The Great Depression was bad for just about everyone in America. This bronze statue scene shows a bread line. Unemployed people would have to wait for hours to get food. And this shows an elderly couple in a shanty town. The memorial was designed for accessibility, and here are some braille columns. Even though FDR wasn't blind, it's still part of helping disabled people. As the nation was coming out of its worst financial crisis, a world war was brewing in Europe and Asia with Nazi and Japanese aggression. The US maintained neutrality, but on December 7, 1941, Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, and the US entered the war against Japan and Nazi Germany and Italy in Europe. FDR was leading the nation in the largest war in history on 2 fronts thousands of miles apart. That's not an easy task. But the US and its allies achieved critical victories like Midway and D-Day and the Battle of the Bulge.
I have seen war on land and sea. I have seen blood running from the wounded. I have seen children starving. I have seen the agony of mothers and wives. I hate war.
Here's a giant statue of FDR and Fala. He is in his wheelchair in the statue, but it's covered as he always had it. And there is Fala, his Scottish Terrier, who I'm very glad gets recognition here. Fala is one of my favorite dogs in history. By his 4th inauguration in 1945, victory was in sight. But as the Allies were closing in on Berlin, the president died on April 12, 1945. This bas-relief shows his funeral procession on Pennsylvania Avenue. The difficult work of seeing the war through and the post-war world ended up being the work of his successor, Harry S. Truman. Unlike other presidential memorials, this one recognizes the work of the brilliant First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. She was pretty progressive for the time, often more so than Franklin. She was also the first delegate of the US to the United Nations, and was the first chair of the Committee on Human Rights, and oversaw the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. a unique and wonderful memorial to one of the greatest presidents our nation has seen. I have videos on the other National Mall memorials, so please go check those out, and thanks for watching.